today, momentarily, imminently, right around the corner, President Donald Trump will be signing an executive order, a major executive order, to keep one of his campaign promises, one that we care about deeply here on the Charlie Kirk Show, which is the abolition, the elimination of the Department of Education. The Department of Education was created in the 1970s under President Jimmy Carter, who separated from what it was previously called the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. Now, I think that is worthy of a little bit of a pause. That means we were able to send a man to the moon, win 2 world wars, become an industrial superpower, a world superpower, balance our budget, build the world's greatest middle class, have a well-read, well-grounded citizenry without a federal Department of Education. We were able to become the envy of the planet without a centralized bureaucracy called the Department of Education. How were we able to do that? Well, for most of America, education happened between parent and child, pastor and child, community and child. For most of American history, it was local, 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 because education is the most personal of all the things. It happens in the soul of an individual. Education is very hard to put 2,000 miles away in a bleak, downtrodden building. Basically a glorified cabinet file. Our founding framers and our founding fathers were classically educated. They studied the great books. They understood the big ideas of human nature. They could tell you what was good or evil, holy or profane, right or wrong, the difference between a citizen and a serf. Now when I go to college campuses, they can't tell me what a woman is. They can't tell me what a man is. We went from an education system that would explore eternal truth, one that would challenge children to go after what is beautiful and what is good. And instead, we gravitated away towards an administrative state model of education. The Germans, which have a tendency to introduce the worst ideas imaginable, introduced this idea of historicism, coupled with historicism, which is an idea that history has an endpoint, and we must keep on growing the state to get us closer to that endpoint. It is Hegelian in nature. Was this idea of the administrative approach to education. This was largely authored by people such as John Dewey, Woodrow Wilson. They wanted the centralization of education, that no longer should parents be in charge of education, no longer should churches or synagogues or communities, but we need to prepare students to become good worker bees. Now, every time I hear a Republican politician say, well, we want our education system to create the best workers of the future, I cringe. That is not what education is about. Education is about creating good citizens. Education is about creating people that are capable of answering life's deeper questions. You see, if you create good citizens, they can do any job that you throw in front of them. Instead, we entered into the hyper-specialization of American education. We were going to sit in single file lines. No longer would we have dialogue or discussion in the classical form of education. You will be taught science, technology, engineering, and math. You will keep your mouth shut. You will do what you are told. It's hyper-authoritarian. And over the last 100 years, we have seen the downfall of American education, and Jimmy Carter accelerated that trend away from the proven model that led us to a superpower and closer towards a Marxist version of how to educate our kids. The battle between good and evil seems to be escalating. It is easy to blame politicians, government, or poor leadership, but behind all of that is a spiritual battle. Pastor Alan Jackson's new book, Angels, Demons, and You talk about the reality of this battle and the spiritual realm that exists around us. It has a real impact on us every day. As you read, you will discover that angels and demons are not imaginary, they actually exist. You can find them playing a variety of roles throughout the Bible, and they're still influencing the world today. We don't need to be afraid, but we do need to be aware and prepared. Angels, Demons, and You provides valuable insight, practical tools, and biblical truth to help you recognize the spiritual battle around us and become a difference maker in our generation. Get your copy today at alanjackson.com/angels. Since the creation of the Department of Education, spending on education has gone way up, while American education performance has actually gone down, often dramatically. For decades, Republicans have promised rhetorically to get rid of the Department of Education. Reagan said he would. In fact, that'd be fun to get a clip of that. Congressmen have talked about doing it, but nothing has happened. People assumed that Trump would be the same way, that he would talk about abolishing it, but it wouldn't happen. Oh, it's just a bunch of rhetoric. It's just a bunch of talk. It's just a bunch of jibber jabber. But President Trump is the promise keeper president. He is the promise keeper president. So today, he is signing an executive order ordering Education Secretary Linda McMahon to do everything possible to make herself the last education secretary. Now, of course, there are some obvious caveats. The department was created by Congress, so it probably can't be completely abolished without Congress. But we can do as much as possible to make the department's demise a mere matter of paperwork. Trump has already laid off or furloughed thousands of the department's staff. He can relocate the programs we can't get rid of. There's no reason we need a special cabinet department to run Pell Grants. We had them before we had an education department. We can apply the same principle to federal student loans and have the Treasury Department run them. Scott Bessent would do a much better job running anything to do with financial transactions than the Department of Education. Does the Department of Education need its own civil rights office? Why not just have it at the Department of Justice? And while we're at it, let's have a go after real discrimination that occurs in our schools against white, Asian, and Jewish students. Not just going after fake hate crimes that happen on college campuses. Speaking of which, you guys should get that clip, which was quite an interesting encounter I had at the University of Tennessee.
I was hate crime 5 times in one night, okay? 3 of them by Trump supporters.
What happened to you?
I was just walking, and then I see this truck full of 4 white men pass by me, MAGA apparel, everything, you know. They drove past me, and they were like, F you, bend over.
Okay, so they said the N-word on campus to you?
Well, yes.
Okay, so what happened to them when you reported them?
I didn't report them.
Threatening to rape you is an intent of a crime. Did you go to the police? You file a police report? You hire an attorney? You sue the school? Did you go to the civil rights office? Do you file a civil rights complaint? Did you do any of that? Because you should.
Okay.
No, did you? Tell me. Yes or no?
I did not. But
Why?
I'm not going to argue with you.
No, but you're coming in front of 2,000 people to say it. Why did you not go to the university and say this happened?
Next instance, they threatened to rape me and then just drove off.
Hold on. So a bunch of Trump guys who are largely white heterosexual males then also threatened to rape you?
Different group of people, but yes.
I'm going to show you the university official, and why don't you go file a Department of Education complaint, and let's find these terrible people that did this to you. Can we agree?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll think about
and by
that.
the way, we'll be able to look at security camera footage, and we'll see.
Okay, I'll think about that.
But you didn't do that,
Can I
though.
try to finish?
You'll think about it. Hold on. Why wouldn't you want to do that immediately? No, honestly, I think you're Jussie Smollett at this campus. I think you're completely making this whole thing up. I think you are a complete liar. Because I am now giving you an opportunity to report this at the high. I will bring this to Linda McMahon, the head of the Department of Education, the federal government. I will make sure these people are arrested by Kash Patel, the head of the FBI. And you'll say, oh, I'll think about it. Because you're making this up. You're doing this for a political purpose. So will you, no, seriously, Kash Patel will get involved. Yes? It's a hate crime. That's not acceptable. Will you do this or not?
That's really cute, Charlie, but I'm trying to give you the opportunity to alleviate hate within this group of people who have a shared ideology.
But hold on a second. There's no hate. There's just love of America here in this audience. That's all that's here today, okay? That's all that's here. Now, getting rid of the Department of Education also won't cut the budget quite as much as it might seem. The department has a massive, colossal budget of $250 billion, but most of that is stuff that we can't get rid of for now. Pell Grant, student loans, and important stuff like special education funding that we should, of course, keep. It's Title I funding for schools. But the principle here is incredibly important. We are getting rid of a department that never should have existed in the first place. Getting rid of this department would be a major step forward towards the localization and the restoration of the Parents' Party movement. This was a pledge that President Trump made to the Parents' Party, that no longer are bureaucrats going to say that they are in charge of our kids. What President Trump is saying declaratively today is that it is your kids, not the state's kids. It is not some government bureaucrat. Here is Ronald Reagan making a promise. I'm going to get rid of the Department of Education. Ronald Reagan said, play cut 243.
The budget plan I submit to you on February 8th will realize major savings by dismantling the Departments of Energy and Education and by eliminating ineffective subsidies for business.
Yeah, none of that happened. In fact, the Department of Education grew and added more headcount. It strengthened, it deepened, and it did more damage. And Ronald Reagan failed in that regard. And that was when it was early. That was before it was this beast that it is today. I had the opportunity to walk the halls of the Department of Education, and Linda McMahon is doing a phenomenal job a couple weeks ago. That is a sad, depressing, Stalinistic Soviet building. You walk, and it is a massive building, massive. And you got to wonder, what are these people doing all day long? What? And I thought to myself, as I walked the halls of the Department of Education, and I stared at 5 or 6 bureaucratic worker bees that wouldn't even look up from their work to look at who was coming by. Just monotonous. I said, what does that person right there at that computer screen, what business does that human being have over my daughter in Arizona? The answer is none. 0. They don't know her. They don't know anything. So it's time to retire them. End it. No mas. Afuera. Delete it. According to Dr. Larry Arnn, there are 23 million civilian employees of the government, state, federal, and local. 11 million of them work in education. 11 million of them. Almost half. But did you know out of 11 million, 6.7 million of them are not teachers or teachers' assistants? Over half. So you have 11 million people in education. 11 million people that work in education in this country. And 4.3 million of them are teachers. So 4.3 million are teachers, and the remainder, 6.7 million, are principals, assistant principals, deans, paper workers, administrators. This is the problem with education, most fundamentally, is that we have become a bloated, overweight country, both metaphorically and literally, by the way, but that's a whole separate topic for a different time. And our institutions have found themselves to be a little bit lethargic, getting a little bit slow, a little bit slug, and not caring about the delivering of the education for our kids. You can walk into any local high school. The high school I went to was falling victim to this. I saw it happening at Wheeling High School when I was sophomore, junior, senior. I saw this trend really accelerate towards the end part of my high school years, which was all of the extra money that District 214 was receiving, where I grew up, District 214, very well funded, incredible, unbelievable amounts of money going to schools. Teachers were earning $100,000, $120,000, $130,000 a year. That's when I was going to school, and it's a lot more now. I mean, the pay increases are through the roof. huge pensions. It was very common to have a PE teacher where I went to school earn $145,000 a year. Very common. And I started to see this trend where the more money that Wheeling High School would receive, it wasn't going towards teachers or teachers' assistants. It was going towards a part of the building that I rarely visited. A part of the building that I wasn't really even sure who all these people were. And it was right in the administrative bloat. And they would be adding on new offices and they'd be adding on new areas. And we were wondering, who are all these people? I think I saw my guidance counselor like twice throughout my 4 years. And boy, these guidance counselors would make a ton of money. And some of them were, nice, wonderful people. It's not an indictment of them, but their role is largely unnecessary and would cost the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars and then pensions for the rest of their life. Our nation's report card is a failure. We cannot meet basic standards. Only 61% of fourth graders are proficient in math. There was a story recently that I thought was a parody. A young lady graduated with honors, and she can't read or write. The school gave her honors distinction, and she cannot read or write. It's a true story. You can go through over 20 schools in downtown Baltimore, and you cannot find a single student in fifth grade that can read. Not a single student. Yet these teachers keep on getting paid. And the administrators, they keep on getting paid. And the administrators are there allegedly to try to keep standards up for the kids. And a whole different topic for a different time is how public sector teacher unions have done more damage to America than Vladimir Putin ever will. How public sector teacher unions, like the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, they operate as a cartel, very similar to the Sinaloa drug cartel, very similar. They are harming our kids. They are poisoning them with bad ideas. Public sector teacher unions run by Randy Weingarten, who might as well be Education El Chapo, has sent tens of millions of kids' lives backwards. And they are an arm of the Democrat Party.